The year is 1560. A warlord with over 25,000 soldiers is marching through Japan, confident, unstoppable, and about to be destroyed by a man commanding fewer than 3,000. That man had no business winning, no backup, no reinforcements, and according to every military calculation available at the time, no chance. But here's the thing about Oda Nobunaga. He didn't care about calculations. He was the most consequential and most misunderstood figure in Japanese history. So let us separate the legend from the man, because the man is far more interesting. This is File 1. Oda Nobunaga. Chapter 1. The Fool of Owari. Nobunaga was born in 1534, in Owari province, roughly modern-day Aichi prefecture if you're looking at a map. His father, Nobuhide, was a mid-level warlord. Not a king, not a peasant. Somewhere in between. Enough land to matter, not enough to feel safe. From childhood, Nobunaga was called Owari no Outsuke, the Fool of Owari. This wasn't affectionate. He wore his clothes half open, he ate while walking, he hung out with commoners, and he behaved in ways that made the samurai class deeply uncomfortable. A warlord's son was supposed to be composed, formal, distant. Nobunaga was none of those things. Here's what most retellings miss. The fool act may have been strategic. We can't know for certain, but several historians have noted that Nobunaga was quietly paying attention to everything. Troop movements, economics, the weaknesses of neighboring clans. The man who seemed to not care was building a mental map of how to win. His father died when Nobunaga was 17. He inherited a domain riven by internal conflict. His own brother tried to seize power. Nobunaga had him killed. If that sounds brutal, it was. This is medieval Japan. Sentiment was a luxury nobody could afford. Chapter 2. The Battle of Okehazama. By 1560, Nobunaga controlled Owari province, but barely. He was surrounded by enemies, and the greatest of them was about to make his move. Imagawa Yoshimoto commanded one of the most powerful armies in Japan, 25,000 soldiers, by most estimates, marching toward the capital. Owari was directly in his path. Nobunaga had between 2,000 and 3,000 men. Every rational option was some form of defensive strategy. Hold the castle, sue for peace, hope Yoshimoto would pass without destroying everything. Nobunaga's advisors reportedly argued for exactly this. Nobunaga chose to attack, not a defensive skirmish. A full assault on Yoshimoto's main camp in the middle of the day during a violent thunderstorm. This is where I need to flag something important. The thunderstorm detail, where the storm conveniently masked Nobunaga's advance, appears in later accounts and is possibly mythologized. What is confirmed, Nobunaga attacked. Yoshimoto was killed. The much larger army collapsed. What actually happened in those hours is still debated by historians. What isn't debated, the outcome. Nobunaga, the fool with 3,000 men, destroyed one of Japan's most powerful armies in a single afternoon. Owari was saved, and every warlord in Japan suddenly had a new name to worry about. Chapter 3. How he actually fought. Here's where the legend takes over and where we need to slow down. You've almost certainly seen it in film or games. Nobunaga's men at Nagashino in 1575, firing in rotating volleys, 3 lines of musketeers cycling through, fire, reload, creating a continuous wall of lead that annihilated the Takeda cavalry. It's a great image. It is also almost certainly not what happened. The rotating volley technique, in Japanese the sandanuchi, does not appear in any contemporary military record from Nagashino. The first descriptions of it emerged decades later. Modern historians, including researchers who have studied the actual battle site, largely agree. The rotating volley is a later invention, a narrative added to make Nobunaga's genius look even more deliberate. Here's the irony. He didn't need the legend. The truth is impressive enough. What Nobunaga did do at Nagashino was deploy firearms in larger numbers and with better fortifications than his opponents had seen before. The Takeda cavalry, devastating against conventional infantry, was stopped. The battle was won. The details of exactly how are still contested, but the result changed Japanese warfare. He also built Azuchi Castle, completed in 1579, overlooking Lake Biwa. 7 stories, built to be seen. It was a statement. The old way is over. He introduced Rakuichi Rakuza, free market policies that broke up the merchant guild monopolies that had controlled Japanese commerce for centuries. He standardized weights and measures across his territory. This is the part most samurai content forgets. Nobunaga wasn't just a general, he was an administrator, an economist, and, in the context of his era, something close to a revolutionary. Chapter 4. The Man Behind the Campaign. Something you rarely see in Western coverage. Nobunaga was genuinely curious about the outside world in a way that was almost unprecedented for a Japanese warlord of his era. When a Jesuit missionary named Luis Froa arrived in Japan, Nobunaga welcomed him. He asked detailed questions about Europe, about technology, about religion, about how other nations organized their armies. This wasn't naive fascination. Nobunaga was looking for advantages. He also encountered a man named Yasuke, an African man who arrived in Japan in 1579 as an attendant to an Italian Jesuit. The historical record confirms that Nobunaga met Yasuke, was reportedly fascinated by him, and kept him close. Whether Yasuke held official samurai status is a matter of ongoing historical debate, one that became extremely heated in 2024 for reasons you may already know. We'll cover Yasuke's story in full in File 2. What we can say. Nobunaga was interested in people and ideas that fell outside the expected boundaries of his world. For a 16th century warlord, that was genuinely unusual. Chapter 5. Honnoji. June 21, 1582. Nobunaga is staying at the Honnoji temple in Kyoto with a small guard. He's in the middle of coordinating a massive military campaign. The country is nearly unified, not completely, but closer than anyone had come before. His general, Akechi Mitsuhide, turns his army around. In the early morning hours, Akechi's forces surround the temple. Nobunaga, reportedly woken by the sounds of combat, understands immediately what is happening. By most accounts, he fought back personally before the fire took the building. His body was never found. He was 49 years old. Why did Mitsuhide turn? This is one of the most analyzed questions in Japanese history. The theories range from personal humiliation. Nobunaga had reportedly insulted Mitsuhide publicly on multiple occasions, to political calculation, to clan loyalty, to external conspiracy. No single explanation is accepted by all historians. Mitsuhide himself survived the betrayal by exactly 13 days. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, another of Nobunaga's generals, moved with extraordinary speed, defeated Mitsuhide at the Battle of Yamazaki, and began the process of claiming what Nobunaga had built. The 13 days became a phrase in Japanese, Mitsuhide's 13 Days of Glory. Chapter 6. What he left behind. Here's the question worth sitting with. Did Nobunaga fail? He died before unification was complete. His betrayer was another of his own men. The Japan that emerged after his death was shaped by others, Hideyoshi, then Tokugawa Ieyasu, who took his framework and completed it. But consider what the framework was. When Nobunaga began his campaign, Japan was fractured into dozens of competing domains, paralyzed by guild monopolies, sealed off from outside contact, and organized around a feudal structure that had barely changed in centuries. By 1582, the country had firearms deployed at scale, free markets introduced in key regions, a new model of castle architecture, and a warlord who had demonstrated that the old rules, about alliances, about military tactics, about what a leader was supposed to be, were negotiable. Hideyoshi and Ieyasu finished the project, but they finished it on a foundation Nobunaga built. The Fool of Owari, the Demon King, the military revolutionary, he was all three. And none of them quite captures it. That's File 1. If you want to go deeper, the sources I found most useful are Jeroen Lemes's biography, Japonius Tyrannus, and George Ellison's essay on Nobunaga in the Cambridge History of Japan. Both push back on the legend in useful ways. The next file covers the man who may be the most contested figure in Japanese history right now. Someone whose story intersects directly with Nobunaga's final years, and who has been at the center of a debate about history, identity, and who gets to be called a samurai. File 2, Yasuke. Subscribe if you want to be there when it drops. And if you have questions about the sources, the debate, or anything I got wrong, the comments are open. This is one file at a time.